Hi, this is Ryan Hoff with your AIC Legislative Minute for April 26th, 2021, presented this week by MAXIMUS. Here we are. The 2021 legislative session is over. Well, it's sort of over. More on that in a moment, but it has been a strange year. Holding session in a socially distanced fashion is something that we hopefully will never have to do again. It presented unique challenges, but with your help, we have had a fairly successful year. Though we didn't achieve everything we had hoped for, and let's face it, no one ever gets everything they want when it comes to the legislature, we did achieve some of our pre-session goals while also defending against some proposals that would have been quite detrimental to county government. While I won't give away the full story on every bill that impacts counties prior to presenting our legislative update at next month's AIC district meetings, here are a couple highlights on issues that I've brought to you over the past few months. Going into session, we speculated that COVID would spark deep discussions about the role of government to regulate citizen and business activity. Senate Bill 5 was a direct example of this and garnered a great deal of focus this session. What began as a broadly written limit of local government authority to enforce public health mandates became a much more focused shift of authority from local boards of health to elected officials, and only during periods of declared public emergency. This bill passed last week, but not overwhelmingly, with a 65 to 29 vote in the House and 37 to 12 vote in the Senate. House Bill 1381, which we've spoken a lot about on wind and solar planning, failed to pass, thanks in large part to the feedback that legislators got from their county officials across the state. As I testified to several times during legislative session, renewable energy projects are potentially a valuable source of tax revenue for local governments. But as with any large-scale development, the authority of county officials to make sure that renewable development is compatible to existing land uses must be maintained. This bill failed to pass, but the electric production industry is rapidly changing, and there is large demand for renewable production, so this discussion will surely continue. AIC will be presenting workshops on the changing landscape for utilities this summer, so keep an eye out for opportunities to learn more on the issue. Obviously, the state budget dominated discussion in the final days of session. Most of the focus was on the April budget forecast, on which the final version of the two-year budget is based. Jaws dropped when that forecast predicted roughly $2 billion in higher revenue than was originally predicted. This, coupled with federal ARP funds provided to the state, dramatically increased the ability to invest in many different areas. Spending down debt, boosting education funding, and major funding to grant programs grabbed headlines and led to a budget that was largely supported by both sides of the political aisle. Looking forward, for every bill that has passed the General Assembly, the governor has 7 days from bill passage to sign or veto the bill. If he does not sign it, it automatically becomes law on the 8th day after receipt. Several bills have already been signed into law, and decisions will be made on the rest this week. Looking forward, be aware that session did not actually adjourn for the year. The legislature is required to update legislative and congressional maps this year, but due to the COVID pandemic, the federal census data that those maps are based on won't arrive until this fall. Expect the legislature back in the mid to late fall to vote on those maps. Technically, they could address other issues, but legislative leadership has already signaled that that is highly unlikely. Obviously, there are dozens of other bills that impact counties that you will be interested in hearing about. Be sure to attend our upcoming AIC district meetings next week to hear the full story on what the legislature did and didn't pass this session, and maybe what to expect for next year. For now, I want to thank all of you for your involvement and support this session. We certainly rely on the expertise and engagement of our membership to successfully represent county interests at the State House. This has been the AIC Legislative Minute for April 26, 2021, brought to you by Maximus.